This is a Nekko Media podcast.
What's your pleasure, sir?
Welcome, cinephiles and Cenobites. This is Cinebite30 of Season 3. I'm your host, Annika Pussyfoot. On the show, we have the writer and director of such short films as the award-winning drama From the Sky and The Devil Needs a Fix, Ian EBRIGHT. He takes us behind the scenes of both short films, the whole writing process to hiring the cast and actual production time. Lots of great insight into his world of indie filmmaking and approach. Here's our wonderful conversation with filmmaker Ian EBRIGHT.
Welcome to a new episode of the Cinephiles and Cenobites podcast. I am Onofre, and with me, my hetero life mate, Mox.
Yo.
Today, we have a special guest on the show. We have indie filmmaker, writer, director, Ian EBRIGHT. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Hell yeah.
Ian, feel free to please kind of give us a little bit or touch base on your background in filmmaking and how you got all started.
Yeah, totally. In my 20s, I went to film school and was a film critic for a couple different websites and essentially tried writing like feature-length screenplays from Seattle to kind of like pitch to LA. And after a while, I kind of got burnt out on that. So I went away for like 6 years and then saw a couple movies that kind of relit the fire for me and came back. And when I came back, I had only written feature screenplays, in my first attempt, but decided to write a short called From the Sky in 2012. And ever since then, I've been, I've made 2 shorts and I'm sort of writing and developing longer form stuff, a TV series and a feature. So yeah, it's weird. I'm kind of like, I'm new to it in a weird way, even though I've been trying for like a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, man. And those 2 shorts you've released are they're great.
Yeah. So From the Sky, that was like your directorial debut and your short form writing debut.
Yeah, it's weird. It had been about 13 years since I had been on a set, and the last set I was on was in film school, and so set is like a very loose term, it was a film school
Right.
set, so like it was super, super like we didn't know what we were doing, and we were terrible writers, and it was just probably pretty shameful, but we were practicing, and so yeah, From the Sky was like the first time I had ever written a short, and then it's the first thing I've ever done on my own, and I hadn't been really anywhere near a short screenplay or set in like ever for the screenplay. But yeah, it's been about 13 years since I was on set. So that was my first thing.
Where did you shoot From the Sky?
So I live in Seattle and we kind of did location scouting around my state of Washington, in the east part of the state, which changes pretty quickly once you get over the mountains from kind of what you would think of Seattle to, more dry, and like there are areas that feel very desert-like.
Yeah. So that's all Eastern Washington in that.
Yeah, totally. There was this basically two different state parks wrapped around this big river, and we got permits and shot like way up there, kind of getting far enough away so that you couldn't see. I mean, there's not much around, but like we kind of had to hide this town that was nearby.
Wow. Good job on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah, the scenery
Yeah.
is nice. Surroundings and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you definitely sell the fact that, it looks as what you would imagine as like that kind of backcountry.
Cool. That's really nice to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we paid for it. I think we had like, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 flat tires getting all the gear up there, and like
Oh man.
me and the DP both got a poison oak infection, and I got a tick. I got a tick in my leg that I didn't know for the whole shoot. And then eventually, I think it was like the night before our last day, they pulled it out. And then I got a staph infection from that. So like we definitely, I paid more than anyone else, which is fair, I think, because it was, I should.
Right.
But no, we kind of paid for that location, but I'm so happy with it. Like, it was a backup location to another part in the park that was further down toward the entrance, and not knowing what I was doing, in many ways, we went back, and it was like on the top of this hill, and it was so windy. My assistant director and like the production designer was like, "There's no way we can film here, even though it's pretty. It's just so windy." So we wandered up like an hour further up by foot, and found this area that was sort of in the middle of this like horseshoe, where it was like surrounded by hills on three sides. So it like killed the wind to where we could actually shoot. So nice. Yeah, like it's nice to hear when people give that kind of feedback, because we fought really hard to get something that didn't look like we just pulled over on the side of a freeway and shot.
Yeah.
Right, because it doesn't. Like, I was thinking at first, like, oh shit, these guys spent money. I think they went like across to the Middle East. Like, I wouldn't think it's just in America.
Yeah,
so.
like the Northwest.
Nice, man.
Like,
that's awesome.
Where's the pine trees? No way, man.
Oh, it was fun too. We pulled 4 actors out of LA, and so we flew them up. And I don't think any of them had been to Washington, but we flew them into Seattle, and it was really fun to drive them about an hour and a half from the airport in Seattle to the location, because they went through gray Seattle, then through the mountains that are very like kind of like Alaska, and then arriving in this area that looks like the film. It was like they couldn't believe that the scenery could change that much in like an hour and a half drive. Yeah, we were super lucky, super lucky to find those spots. Nice. Everywhere that was recommended to us was super lame. It was like, it was like everything looks
train station and okay.
Like rolling hills, kind of Game of Thrones stuff. It was just
right.
Oh wow.
So
like the wrong look, totally. Getting back to the actors, you said you flew them up from LA. How did you find them? You put a casting call out, or someone recommended them specifically? Because they were amazing.
Yeah,
they were amazing, and that's, I think, there's a few reasons why when I watch that film now, a few years later, I'm still in love with it. It's mostly the work that those guys did. They're so good. So the Maz Sayem, who plays the father, and Mohammed Tamimi, who plays his son, I had seen them in a short film playing super different roles, but they were amazing. So I was kind of connected with the director of that, and he recommended it. And when we went down to LA, they came in and auditioned, and it was like instant. Like, yep, it's going to be those guys. And then the 2 antagonists, we found them from auditions down in LA. So we were just fortunate to have, it's a pretty small community that worked to our advantage. The Arab American community down there, in terms of people that are not only of that descent, but that speak Arabic fluently, which is another sort of requirement we had. In a nice way for us, we felt like we got to see like just a ton of super talented people, because those are pretty unique requirements. Obviously, not just having that Arab American descent, but then also being able to speak the language so well. So yeah, but it was a bunch of like super talented people, and we feel like we picked the best ones for our story.
Did you initially write the story in Arabic, or did you have to have it translated afterwards?
Yeah, so I don't speak like any Arabic. No, so it was very, very written in English by me, and we got up to around 18 to 20 drafts, and then at some point before the actors came in, but while we were still kind of raising money, I was meeting with Middle Eastern advisors to get feedback on the script to make sure that it was sort of authentic, and that was a really cool experience, because I was off the mark in some areas, and they helped me get closer to the mark. And then they were also helpful with translation. So we had a guy that was there at the audition that was helping with Arabic. And then finally on the shoot, we had somebody else that spoke 4 languages, as well as the actors themselves speaking it frequently. So it turned into this nice like quality check thing of like at every stage, we had somebody who could kind of be like the final verdict on all that stuff.
Wow.
That sounds awesome. You didn't happen to, one, catch like behind the scenes, and 2, like, is this released on any kind of DVD or anything?
We had a behind the scenes thing that I pulled off Vimeo because I don't know how good it is, but I guess I could turn it back on. And we're not on DVD, but we're on Amazon. So like Amazon Prime, it's free if you search for it there, or you can rent it on Amazon streaming if you want to pay like $2. And then it's free on Vimeo and YouTube. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I love it when directors work with and use actors from previous work. So when I saw is Steven Sorrell in Devil Needs a Fix, I was like,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Oh, that's so nice to hear.
That's nice.
No, that's cool. As a film watcher myself, I kind of like that too. Like P.T. Anderson does that, where he, repurposes people, and it's cool to see. It's like watching a sequel for a franchise that you love. It's fun to watch like the growth or whatever, or like the change. And same with actors. It's cool to see how directors reuse people and give them new opportunities. So I've always liked that, just as like a film goer myself. But my reasons for doing it were different. I just really fell in love with those guys. Nice. Doing From the Sky was just like the best creative experience ever. And I'm always kind of thinking with them in mind. And then when I wrote The Devil Needs a Fix, I couldn't stop thinking about Steven. I'm like, well, this is definitely gotta be him. So yeah, I'm glad that was noticeable to you. And yeah, it's really fun it's just kind of selfish. I know that they're so good. So, I've got a new thing now that I'm thinking about writing, and I'm always thinking about how do I get back together with these guys, because they're such good actors, and it was a weird family-like experience on From the Sky that I would just like to recreate.
There is lots of space for action in From the Sky, even though you nail the like heart of it and even some of the socio-political issues. I mean, I like that. But I also love action. But sometimes, you just get like one or the other. There's like only explosions and bombs. Like, okay, who's this guy now?
Yeah, totally. It's funny you said that. This idea that I have that's kind of super early on that I'm thinking about writing would be more of an kind of classic action-y thing. And Steven and I have been talking, and like he would love to do that stuff anyway. So I'm open to it. I've got, again, a series now that is kind of moving slower lately than it was previously, and then a feature that I'm trying to make. And both of those have those are more like From the Sky, where they're more of just a straightforward sort of dramatic thriller or something. But yeah, I've got some ideas for this, whatever this other thing could be, and bringing Maz and Steven in that would be more action. So it would be cool. I would just love to move the camera more.
Right.
Thing that's awesome about action, and when I watch music videos that I get jealous of that are really like inspired, is I just want to move the camera more. And I know that a lot of times people can do that to sort of distract from the fact that they have no story.
Distract them with movement.
Yeah,
right.
But it would be cool to have to write a story that's super solid, and then just get to get in the trenches more with like the actual cinematography, and do something that's more fluid and with more camera movement. So I know that's sort of a technical goal, but action would be an awesome reason to do that.
Nice.
Hell yeah. I mean, I think you've definitely got the story basis to go from, right? And then you can kind of get frenetic with the camera, but you've got that solid base. So yeah, cool. I'm glad that is an option that you're looking at, because I would love to see an action movie from the point of view of Arab Americans or Arabs in general. I mean, that would be fucking interesting as hell.
Yeah,
they're always like the villains.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's one of the Steven and I have been talking about that. Like it's both in From the Sky and in Devil. We were trying to find ways to play against type, and I share your feelings that Arab American actors are normally just plugged in as terrorist number 3.
Right.
It's just such a super boring kind of two-dimensional thing that we force on them, and let alone, not to mention these men and women are such dynamic actors, but it's just there's so much culture from that part of the world, and it's just an awesome opportunity to not only use men and women from that part of the world in a different way in front of the camera, but to create characters that are more multifaceted and that would challenge just this sort of Western thing of that the white guy is the hero, and that that the Arab American is just disposable in some way. I mean, it's just this is a larger problem that we have in cinema of we always have to have these white stories where it's the white savior, and I find that it's, at this point in history, it's pretty boring and,
Mm.
not helpful.
True.
So it'd be cool to do, just do more of that stuff. I think now we're definitely in an era where those things are changing, which is great.
Right, right. Actually, yeah, we're at an interesting point where I think that is possible, and there's a huge audience who is like looking for these kind of interesting things where the paradigm is something different.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm excited to see how that continues to evolve, but I'm a fan of it. I know, I mean, depending on kind of where you go on the internet, you can certainly find people who feel threatened by it. And
Yeah.
I'm just somebody, I just get bored easy. So it's not the only reason, but just the fact that it's refreshing and different is one of many reasons to be excited about it. And I don't understand the sort of fear of it, or I do understand it, but I think that there's so many rewards to just having better representation and more diverse stories that I don't know. I don't see what the issue is. I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I wanted to ask, how long did that take to shoot?
That's a good question. I can't believe that it only took us 3 days, but it only took us 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
I don't, Ian, I can't believe that it went that smoothly and you got that product, and this was your first outing after 13 years. Like,
I know.
it's a really polished film, dude. Fuck.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And that's like, it's funny. My wife and I will talk about movies that we like, and every once in a while a movie is sort of better than it should be. And we call it pixie dust, where like there's something magical happen that nobody anticipated. Like the movie Moonlight, when we watched that, we're like, everybody in that is like incredible. And there's something about that movie there's just something special that's unspoken, that's like making that movie even better. And I felt that way about at least the experience of making From the Sky. Like the cast and crew, I felt aware of something like magical. And maybe it was just the fact that I hadn't done this really ever before, but there was something about sort of bridging that language and cultural divide, and just the spirit of everyone from these diverse backgrounds that really like believed in the same thing that we were doing, as a way to kind of challenge conventional narrative. That it was weird. It was kind of like one of those moments where you could feel, the sky parting as an analogy, and you almost didn't want to like talk about it or look at it or acknowledge it because it would jinx it.
Like a no-hitter.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like you could feel this is just something weirdly special that's at work, and I'm a part of it, but I don't get to take credit for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Kind of a mystic quality. Yeah, I mean, just because before I even saw it, my old professor was just raving about it, and I missed the session where he like showed it to everybody, so I actually saw it by myself on the computer. I'm like, oh fuck, this thing is awesome, man.
That's so nice to hear. Yeah. Oh man, that's rad. He and I connected also, following off. I know we have been in touch prior to this.
Cool.
I've connected with your professors since then, and like we're kind of seeing what we can do to support each other. And like, I love that he's a playwright and a filmmaker from a very different background and perspective, and so I'm just excited to kind of we're sharing screenplays and like just trying to see how we can support each other. So I owe you guys a thanks on that one.
Wow.
Oh, no problem, dude. Shit. That's awesome. I think you guys would do some interesting shit.
I'm curious. Yeah, it's cool. It'll be fun just to see, and maybe nothing more than, just giving each other like encouragement and feedback on the scripts. But like, it's hard. It can be, when like you live where you live, and you guys know how it is in most of your life.
Yeah.
The time of your life goes to what's in front of you, like work and family or whatever. Like, you've got your local community, and that's awesome. But after a while, that can start to feel like some sort of something fresh can be helpful that kind of breaks into that. So it's nice to make connections out of town, out of Seattle.
For sure.
In terms of like being a writer and being inspired, just having that freshness is really helpful.
Let's see. Can I ask about, so writing From the Sky, how long did that take? How much, and kind of a two-parter, like how much research went into it? and how long did it take you to write that first initial draft?
Yeah, totally. So in terms of research, I didn't know I was doing research for that film, but in those 6 years that I wasn't pursuing film and thought I would never return to it, I was blogging on like faith issues and like politics and human rights and the war on terror and sort of drone strikes and a few other issues related to that were sort of I felt very strongly about. So I was blogging about that. And so I had ended up doing a lot. It didn't feel like research to me. I just had a sort of passionate position about it.
Sure.
And had done tons of research. And then by the time 2012 rolls along, it was weird. Like my wife had our son on the way, like she's pregnant. And for some reason I had like insomnia. So I was up in the middle of the night from like 2 to 4 or whatever.
Wow.
And I just wrote the script in like 2 weeks. It just kind of like,
wow.
it was one of those like things that, again, I hadn't been doing anything screenplay related for over a decade, but it just kind of spit itself out. And then, once our son arrived, because we were both up during the night with him, it was just a good time to, normally I'd be pissed off, right? Because I'm not sleeping or whatever.
Right. Your turn.
But it was, I think I probably did rewrites for about 3 months or so before I started showing people. And I would say that was around the 10th draft. And then after that, again, we rewrote it about 10 times, but that was, either working with the actors or the Middle Eastern advisors and getting their input so that we could and it was nothing structural. It was just sort of like putting a texture on top of it that was really authentic. I mean, the story was always intended to be simple, so that we could focus on getting like the situation and the characters really correct. So yeah, I wrote it the first time in about 2 weeks, and then over the course of the next 9 months, rewrote it about 20 times.
Wow.
Can I ask you this? Coming from someone who is very, like you said, you were very invested in, your certain political views and religious and all of that. How did you write a movie that conveys, I guess, your beliefs? But one of the big things that's a turnoff to me is when a film is obviously preachy. And I feel like you walk that line really well. Like where some of the earlier drafts kind of like, ooh, am I being finger wagged at? And you kind of found your way to.
Yeah. No, totally, dude. I appreciate that. I'm terrified I hate that shit for the same reason you do. I think because I am a person of faith and I'm aware and I've seen such shitty examples of like faith-based movies. And I don't think it's storytelling or art the way it's done. I think it's just awful. And then there's other movies that you watch where you're like, well, that was a religious experience because it was just so well crafted. Some movies you see and you find out 10 years later, like, oh, they were inspired by some religious text or something. But like they hide it so well in the story.
Mm-hmm.
That's the challenge. That's the exciting thing. And, anybody can like hammer out this really awful thing.
Right. 5-minute monologues.
Yeah. That makes one side feel really good about themselves and makes everybody else feel terrible.
Right.
But I hate that stuff so much, and I hate being associated with it because of my own faith, that I run in the opposite direction of the more I can hide my own stuff and try to slip it into these characters. It's a super exciting challenge. So the early drafts were more like that, and that's what's cool about the way I like to write is I really believe in doing your own thing for a while and making sure that you have identified sort of the framework of your story and what it has to say that's of value beyond the plot, and making sure, okay, this is worth getting out of bed for. Like, it's not just some lame thing that no one will care about. And then at some point knowing that it's going to leave your little sort of incubation chamber, and then this community is going to be sort of speaking into it, and then changing from being the only person that owns it to being someone that has to be like the custodian of it, and you have to be willing to be wrong and challenged and to rework stuff. So I would also give everybody else credit in terms of working that obvious stuff out of the early drafts. That was a lot of the advisors and stuff being like, oh, I know what you're going for, but can we get at that a different way? So that's why I like the cast and crew process.
Nice.
A lot of collaboration then on the set too, I'd imagine.
Yeah, totally, for sure. we had hotels or motels that were like 45 minutes away. So at night it was like me and the cast and the interpreter, and we would like go through the next day's pages and like almost go over every word to make sure not just that the Arabic was right, but that sort of the message was authentically not just to get like the language right, but that what the idea that was being conveyed belonged in Arabic. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
totally.
idea actually fit or something. So yeah, that was awesome.
I at some point I got to show you my my first short film. Talk about totally missing the bar and being like, yeah, that's probably somebody's first short film.
It's one long music
so-
video. No, I'm just kidding.
That actually would be a compliment
Yeah?
because for one, I went out of the gates like, okay, let's make this fucking thing 45 minutes, but let's make it artsy.
I'll tell you, it is very artsy, very music driven, very
Incoherent.
experimental.
Anyway, it's horrible. It's like you can tell, oh, that's somebody's first project that they love and didn't bother to get feedback on before they went to camera. So the process of I mean, you had a legit budget with From the Sky. How did that go? Like from the time where you've kind of got the script where it needs to be, you're getting feedback. What was the timeline and how did you go about getting the money for this? And did you have a specific goal funding wise, or that's kind of where you came with, you just got this money or like, you know what, let's just make it with this already?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's what I was going to say to your thing of, I mean, sometimes I don't believe that money like fixes stuff, but
Right.
sometimes if you've got a great script, it's going to take, I don't know, a certain amount of money. I may not believe what I'm telling you right now in like 5 minutes, but there's something to like, it's I guess I'll say like, it's really hard to pull off magic. It gets harder and harder the lower your budget goes. You know what I mean? It's just like
Right.
money can solve a lot of things. Like I can pay to get the kind of DP I want and the kind of camera and lenses I want for the sort of end result. So that's not going to fix my script if it sucks, but at least I know it's going
Right.
to look a certain way. So that's, we were fortunate in that way, and that we had a $30,000 budget. I mean, not a lot of people spend 30 grand on a short.
Right.
So I got a producer through my DP who I found first, and he recommended a producer, and then Jess is her name. She sort of worked up a budget, and then from there we did a Kickstarter and we raised like 20 grand. And then sort of miraculously to me, because now, raising two kids, we have no money, but at the time wife and I brought in the last 10.
Wow.
So yeah, that was we spent 30,000 on the film, and then I probably dropped 2,000 more on festival submissions beyond sort of what we had assumed, because I went crazy and was just desperately submitting everywhere.
right.
Probably in hindsight was not money well spent. But yeah, so that's
Kentucky Maritime Festival.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, we learned, my wife and I learned our lesson on that one, where she was like, hey, go make Devil. I like your script, but like, we as a family do not have, not only do we not have 10 grand, if we had it, we wouldn't spend it on another short. So on that one, we had, I think we raised 18,000 total.
Wow.
And that was us needing to rely on the filmmaking community and people who supported me. Cause we couldn't afford to do that again.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So it helps though, man. My philosophy is like, write a script until you're in love with it, and until other people who you admire as cast or crew are excited about it. And then I think money. I know there's a whole other school of thought out there that's like you can make anything on the cheap. I don't know. Maybe they're right. For me, it seems like if you can raise a certain amount of money, that's going to help erase problems for you.
I think I agree with that too. Like, you were speaking on earlier, like, if your story sucks, you can throw the camera around and be crazy with it, but that won't fix that. I feel like the same way with money too, right? You can pull off only so much at a certain level of money,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you still got to come with it, right?
Totally. I mean, a good story in either case, money or no money, means someone's going to be interested, because like I think a good story probably transcends all that. But then, I mean, you guys know how it is. Like if the audio sucks, especially, or like, yeah, if you can't bring in the kind of actors that are at the level that's going to really do your story justice, like nobody's going to stick around to see how well it turns out. So unfortunately, I know there's some people that are in that sweet spot where, you know, they work in LA and they're surrounded by top level talent. So on a weekend, they can do free, but it's free with like the best people in the business. I mean, I live in Seattle. Yeah, yeah, totally. So, you know, I live in Seattle. So, like on Devil, we sort of split it where, I mean, a lot of the crew, most of the crew was from here and some of the cast was from here, but still pulled some people out of LA. And on whatever I do next, I would always love to pull at least some people out of LA. So, but that's the luxury of money. If you're not living down there and sort of buddies with them, and then do other favors with crazy expensive cameras. So it's kind of like the price you pay for being removed from that community. You have to pay to like pull them out of there, basically.
Now, did Jess also produce Devil?
Yeah, dude, she's so awesome. She did both, and then on Devil, we brought in another producer named Sarah McAaron. And just to give Jess credit, it's Jess Grant. And Jess Grant. They're both the best. I'm crazy about them, and they've read my new feature, and they're both, you know, into it. But they're both like, it's a feature. You know, we can sort of comprehend what it takes to do a short. I think pretty well. But a feature is just such a different beast in that, you know, we're going to need a certain level of producer and then a certain level of money that's way beyond what we've ever done before. Or at least we're going to tell ourselves that until that doesn't work. And then we're like, okay, we're literally going to do this for free. So, for now, I'm choosing to like live the dream of, you know, I want to pull like actors out of LA and have a multi-$100,000 budget. But yeah, currently we have no producer and no money. So we'll see how long we can tell ourselves that.
Wow. So once you get that locked down, like you're in love with the script, Jess and Sarah are in love with the script, your wife and everything, is the first move to go and find that next level producer?
I think so. And I'm saying that only having recently learned the answer to that. You know, like again, on From the Sky, I went to there's this thing called the Seattle Film Summit. And again, I was completely unattached to anybody in the community because I had not been working in it. So I went to the Seattle Film Summit thing and was literally asking questions like, does anybody know a good DP? I just had no exposure. And someone got recommended to me who agreed to do it. And then he was the person that recommended Jess, the producer. So I would say two things. One is I think the conventional wisdom is always start with the producer. And I think it's super good advice. And then the other is that there is no formula to filmmaking. And sometimes projects come together in a really weird way, like From the Sky starting with the DP. So, yeah. But my attempt on this feature, is because there's so much that I know I don't know about, you know, budgets at that level and just kind of all that next level full length stuff. I really want to get a producer who is very comfortable making the kind of features that I would hope this would be.
In the multi-hundred level, $100,000 level, like someone that's their area.
Yep. And, you know, maybe getting like a recognizable face or two. This one is like From the Sky in that it's like not the subject matter, but it is just a straightforward drama that sort of succeeds or fails on the strength of the performances. They will have to be really, really outstanding actors for it to be anything that anyone cares to remember. So my hope would be to pull a couple people out of LA that, you know, like working TV actors or people that kind of raise the pedigree of the film that might have a name and they haven't sort of broken into the mainstream yet, but a lot of people recognize them, kind of that sort of thing.
This could be their vehicle.
Yeah. Like they're out there and they're on big shows and people are like, I've seen them somewhere, but you're getting them at a price before they sort of break open.
They blow up. Right.
So that's the thought. But again, I need a producer to tell me I'm either right or I'm stupid.
So I know that is cooking, but you also talked about a TV series. Are you kind of devoting time to both of them, or are you giving more to one, and why?
That's a good. So the TV series has been around since late 2013, and Eric Frith, who edited From the Sky and The Devil Needs a Fix, I wrote the feature version of this TV series, and then he came on as a co-producer, and we were getting interest in it, but not as a feature. We were getting interested in it as a TV series. So he then became a co-writer as we adapted it from a feature script to a TV pilot script. And it's that thing where it's kind of quote unquote ready to go. But again, we live in Seattle, and we've gotten looks from like Amazon Studios and Samuel Goldwyn and people down in LA and people up here. And it's kind of that thing, that back burner thing where like once a year, somebody that we think has the chops to do well with it as a producer will have interest. And then it's ready to go. And we're like, sure, take it out and see what happens. Right. But no, we're not like, I don't feel like I'm far enough along to really know what to do with it anymore. And so in a way, I wrote this feature script since then, because I'm kind of worried, and we've gotten some feedback to sort of back this up, that like, I mean, dude, I've done 2 shorts, so I have zero name when it comes to filmmaking, especially when I'm trying to attract the kind of money that would be required of a series. Yeah. So I might need sort of the bridge of a feature film to get me to that series, if that makes sense. Like go short, then feature, then series. So, and plus, after a while, again, this is me talking about how I get bored easily, which is super true. You work on something really hard for a really long time, and like after a while, you almost feel sick about it. Like I've thought about it so much that I don't want to think about it for a while. Right. So I think it's quality and I love it, but I don't know what else to do with it at this point. So it's kind of ready to go and on the shelf. And then, currently I'm very excited about the feature, and I'm trying to see if I can move that one forward.
Awesome. Last thing on the series, have you formatted it for network, or it's definitely going to be like a streaming?
Yeah, I don't think it would be network, only because it seems like increasingly I'm writing darker and darker stuff. So it's not,
I could see that.
Yeah, I feel like it would be a cable or streaming service thing in an ideal world, because it's just the subject matter. I don't feel like a network would, like, there would be boycotts if it were on a network thing. But if it were on like FX, people would be like, oh, cool, this feels like an FX thing.
Right. Not 8:30 on a Tuesday.
No, no one's gonna watch. Yeah.
Do you have anything more specific, I guess, on this that you wanted to ask before we just devolve into geekdom?
No, I was just gonna ask about The Devil Needs a Fix. How's the feedback on that so far since it's been released?
It's been good, but not from the sky.
Not from the sky.
Oh,
okay. It's done. It played, I think, 2/3 of the festivals that From the Sky did, and it's been good. I don't think it works as easily for people as From the Sky does, and that might be the result of my writing or something. But like From the Sky, and this is kind of why I went back in the direction of From the Sky for the feature that I've written just now, is I think what works, or I think my strong suit as a writer, at least currently, is like more emotional stuff and more, like more sort of heart/emotional stuff. And I think Devil, as much as I like it, is more sort of heady and conceptual and kind of plot driven. And so that doesn't necessarily explain how well it did or didn't do. But at least for me as a writer, I feel like
you're finding you're strong.
Yeah, and it's weird. Even when I wrote it, I was like, it's weird. I don't write genre stuff, and it just felt I was kind of excited about it. People were excited about it. But it was a stretch, which is awesome. And I'm really proud of how it turned out. But I'm also excited to kind of run back in the direction of where I think my strong suit is, which I think is more simple stories and like again, really relying less on sort of a plot twist or conceptual stuff and more on just the emotion and sort of relatability.
I know that sounds awesome. And for me as a viewer, my favorite pieces are these emotional, character-driven things that kind of wear the skin of a genre, but that don't necessarily depend on all of those kind of devices you're talking about, like plot twists and, always plot, get to the next event.
Yeah, no, totally. Dude, that's awesome the way you say that. I love what Scorsese says. He says he never goes back to movies for the plot, because if all it has is plot, you know it after the first viewing.
Right.
And he says he goes back to movies because of the characters and the way that they watching them relate to the way that the story develops. So, I mean, you can think of a lot of these sort of present day movies that are like, oh, it's a maze that you have to sort of solve by the end, or it's a thrill ride. And it's like, usually good. It's like, okay, cool. I did that once, but like, there's nothing drawing me back there because I'm not really connecting to anything in the story. I just sort of experienced whatever the one time. And, so I'm a big believer in not just like,
right.
Yeah, storytelling more than trying to create just an experience for people. Because I think there's a lot of that. People are very good at like style, and I don't know how much that stays with anybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like story is the thing that if it connects sort of heart to heart from writer or whatever to audience, that has the potential to really last. So that's kind of the lane I try to aim for.
Yeah, I think that's boss. I think, for guys like us, we do, I think, have to think in terms of maybe genre, just so that people trying to pay money for it or get it out there, right, can be like, here, it's this thing, go watch it. But
Dude,
then when
totally.
they get there, there's like more to experience, right? Like, I mean, we want our shit on their shelf.
Yeah. So I think you might be like super onto something. And this is, as I'm writing this stuff that, I think is good, I'm starting to ask those questions of myself of, I might not be at a place where I can ever get something made that doesn't have something more marketable to offer. So I'm thinking in that sort of action-y thing I mentioned to you earlier, I'm wondering if I got to do exactly what you're talking about for this idea that I have that hasn't been written, of like something that has the appearance of more genre, sort of in the action area, but at least like more of an all-out fantasy. And then I can build in the story and sort of the theme of what I want to say. But I think you're onto something.
Oh, thanks, man. I mean, I know for me, that's a problem too. Like, I fall in love with this story, right? But as I'm trying to explain it, I don't know if it's coming across something that they can understand other than just like quote unquote drama.
Right. Yeah. Except the good thing about dramas are, getting back to your money thing, like they're the cheapest, right? So then it's that like double-sided thing of maybe nobody wants to pay me to get it made, but if I can be creative and make it on the cheap, like it's going to be cheaper for me to make it with my own resources than something that is a genre piece. It's that, yeah. I don't know. It's like, it's funny when you go to these events or Q&As and stuff. I've always kind of been mind blown by the filmmakers, and they're usually not younger in terms of their age, but younger in terms of not having made a ton of stuff.
Right.
But they talk about the way that filmmaking works as such a formula that I'm like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about, because if there was a formula, we would all just reproduce it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's awesome. It doesn't mean there's not sort of value to be gained from the experts that can say, oh, storytelling's like this, or this works really well. Like, I think that stuff's awesome. But these people who have done, one or two or three things and then tell everybody, oh, just go out and do X, Y, and Z. It's like, that may have worked for them, but it's just, art is such a weird, miraculous thing anyway, that it's really hard to know like what it's going to take to get it done. So in your case, you might write genre and that may be the thing that gets you the money, or you might write a drama that's cheap and you make something awesome on the cheap. It's just like, you can kind of guess at any direction. It's hard.
Right.
I still like your idea of sort of wrapping what you have to say in the skin of like the genres that money tends to go toward. That's a pretty great idea.
Thanks, man. I mean, I feel like the concept is simple, but it's like, damn it, how do I do this? Because now I'm getting lost here, and it's just this amalgam of crap.
Yeah, no, I get it totally.
So, what kind of? I mean, I'm sure you're eclectic as shit, but is there any sort of narratives that you kind of have a tendency to lean towards in your own personal viewing?
You mean like favorites of mine?
Yeah. Well, before we get specific, I guess, like, is there a genre or anything that you kind of like? Ooh, I'm gonna see that kind of, because like me and Ono, we like everything, but we're like horror heads.
Just mock
Primarily. Oh wow, I'm alone now. On blast. Okay, so yeah, I'm like a horror head, and a lot of it sucks, but I'll watch it just because it's horror.
Yeah. I'm interested. It's weird. I don't do really well with super dark stuff, but I'm more interested in horror lately than I have been in recent years, just because it's so far out of bounds from what I would normally think about writing. And like movies like The Witch and Hereditary, like those were like pretty freaking great. I don't know, but see, I'm not a horror guy, so
Wow.
I really liked them,
Yeah.
but I think because they're subtle. I mean, Hereditary is like dark as shit, so. Like super, but there's something about it where it feels a little more art house and less sort of straightforward.
Yeah.
Right.
And for me, who's not like, I don't have an awesome context with horror, that's kind of refreshing for me than just the slasher stuff. But I might not be the right audience for that.
Sure. I've heard that. Yeah. I haven't seen Hereditary yet, but a friend described it as it's pretty slow, but what made up for all of that kind of slow pacedness was just one particular scene that will be forever ingrained in his mind. And I don't know if you probably are thinking, oh yeah, I know that scene, but he was like,
oh yeah,
dude, that was just the most he didn't say awful, but frightening, disturbing scene, like,
yep.
And that was like the focal point of the movie, and you can forget about everything else. If you're gonna watch it for that. Like, oh, okay.
Talk about a movie that like I don't know how that guy, like, for a first, I think it was his first feature.
Yeah.
And I'm in awe. It's like so inspired. And the cool thing about it is it gets you in the rhythm of drama, so that you are kind of like, we all sort of know how to adjust as viewers based on what we were watching.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I'm watching like The Meg or some like Michael Bay piece of shit, like I know, okay, I gotta
wait, come on, Armageddon was all right. Come on, man.
That's early Michael Bay.
Okay.
Totally. Different animal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, still not.
Bad Boys, come on, The Rock.
Yeah. No, I love all that, but yeah, I see what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Like they have that 30 minutes, right, to kind of let you know what movie this is. Then, if it's Michael Bay, don't just like drop me a character-driven story halfway through. Like, what's going on?
Totally. The whole thing's going to be like a sugar high. So you're like, okay, I'm going to do that.
Right. That's a nice description.
What's cool about Hereditary is you get into the rhythm of like, oh, cool, I know this is a drama. And then when it starts like making horror turns, like it's unbelievable. It's super disturbing because it's really, it's dark and well shot and inspired and all that. But also because you're sort of you're not used to feeling horror like that in the setting of drama. So I think you guys should check it out.
Okay.
I'm gonna hit up that Redbox tonight. Then I'm gonna hit up. All right, Ian. We're at the point of the show where we're gonna put you even more on the spot. We'd like you to list off your top 6 films of all time, favorites.
Okay.
Of all time.
Yep. So favorites is nice because then I don't feel the need to like prove how smart I am about like,
it's got to be artsy.
Yeah.
Artsy.
It's some movie that was only released in Yugoslavia in 1912.
We don't get many of those.
Obscurity is taste.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, my God.
Cool. All right, good. So since we're just doing favorites, I thought about it. And it was just the stuff that kind of came most immediately to my mind. And then as I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, I think it's probably these. So cool. I'll tell you them. So the first one I'll tell you, I used to call it my favorite film of all time.
Ooh,
and I think I probably still have to just leave it in the top 6. And it's one of those movies, like you see it, a lot of these movies as a kid, And then as you get older, you're like, oh, damn, that really holds up, even if it's not what it was when you saw it as a kid.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's kind of a weird one, or maybe it's not if you think about From the Sky. So Clear and Present Danger with Harrison Ford.
Really?
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, we like to always comment when that's a first, and that is a first.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wasn't
I,
Patriot
for the
Games.
longest time.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that was the one. And then Red October, like those three movies. Patriot Games was the movie. I saw it in theaters. It was the movie that made me want to make movies. I think I was 12.
Really?
Wow.
Nice.
Seen Red October in theater. I mean,
Oh,
my
shit, you were
son's
12.
name. My son's name is Stellan. I remember I saw Stellan Skarsgård, the actor, in Red October for the first time.
Yeah.
Then
Oh.
when Clear Present Danger came out, I just lost my shit. I just thought it was at the time like the biggest, most complex story I had ever seen in a movie. Like it, and then it all kind of worked.
You know, I'm still kind of lost on the plot. Like, I remember scenes and, you know, he's trying to, like, stop terrorists or something, but I still don't know the plot. Like, I could tell you Star Wars, but I'm still, like, on these political espionage kind of things. I'm still, like, kind of lost.
Yeah, totally. It is
Nice.
like super. I watched it recently. I'm like, wow, it does. Like, they pack a ton in there. And another thing I loved about it is, like, back before 9/11, like, we had different heroes in cinema, and now our heroes are like, oh, just whatever they have to do to get things done, including if that's like kill people or torture.
Right.
Right. And before that, it was like nobility and honor, and like if you say something, you know, you have to do the right thing, even if it costs you. And so I grew up in the 90s, so I was raised on all these movies where it was heroic to like actually say what you mean and like, you know, stand up for truth and not be involved in some like shady plot thing. So
Right.
it was weird. It was like this stuff sort of some weird ways like inform my morality of like that there actually is virtue to goodness. And now it's kind of like, oh, goodness is kind of boring. Just, you know, bomb everything.
Right.
Right.
Get the job done. Protect us. It's us
totally.
and it's them.
Totally.
I like what you had to say about that, because there was kind of a shift, right? I mean, in the world, maybe in our own, I guess, lines in the sand.
Oh, totally.
Nice.
And in fact, I think that shift is part of where From the Sky grew out of wanting to challenge the ways that cinema had changed with a film that I thought had the values of the films that I grew up on in the 90s, where, you know, if they were dark comedies, that's fine. It can be dark. But like for stuff that was sort of earnest and thought that goodness was a virtue, From the Sky is trying to continue that and to challenge the ways that we have changed culturally in terms of heroes in cinema and how they're all sort of angsty and whatever.
Right.
Like, they make peace with being the bad guy also or something.
Right. I think that's really cool too. Like, I want to see your action movie, because I feel it's maybe, you know, more old school kind of virtues, but in a narrative that is populated by characters we usually associate as the bad guys.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I'm a big student of storytelling, and I work with a guy, Brian McDonald, who he teaches at Pixar and Sony and Disney, and like he's been a huge influence on like my writing and really kind of clarified what I felt before but couldn't say. And that, you know, the kind of stories that survive, I won't go too deep into this because it'll get us off course, but the kind of stories that survive all the way back to when we were, you know, our ancestors had something called survival information, and it was using stories as a way to either warn people or to inspire people. And then we would pass that along because there was something about our own survival that was buried in that story. And so when we write now, that's why like all these great movies that we think of, like, you know, Schindler's List and Amadeus, you know, The Godfather, they're not their plot. They actually have like a really important moral buried in the story that's teaching us something about ourselves and humanity. So that's why I say this stuff is super important to me, to not just write A to Z and say, oh, cool, I finished something. It's got to like be saying something that's either a warning or an encouragement, but that's like challenging goodness in some way.
Nice. I like that.
Cool.
And also too, right? A to Z is, I guess, important to get you there, but it's about the alphabet as a whole, you know, how it, as one huge thing, it's better or it's more profound than just each separate individual letter that builds up to the Z.
Right. Totally. Yeah. I mean, and if your story isn't ultimately saying anything,
Right.
then it is just plot of like, okay,
Alphabet soup.
yeah, exactly.
Sweet, man.
Okay, so the next one. Oh man, I gotta see your action movie. Sorry to get totally just myopic about that.
No worries, man. Okay, next one is Moneyball with Brad Pitt.
Hey,
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's,
another first, and I love that one too.
Yeah, I love that movie. I don't care at all about baseball, but
Me either. Could give a fuck. I don't know stats, worth anything, or how it works. Way to make something that not everyone cares about fucking compelling.
Yeah, because that's another good example of what we've been talking about, where like that movie isn't about baseball. It's about like,
Right.
you know, that to make progress in life, you have to go through pain, which is like anybody that's been alive knows that's true. So like you watch that movie, it's just, it could be set anywhere. It just happens to be set in baseball. Next one from that director I was talking about on All Is Lost, J.C. Shandor, his first feature, Margin Call, which is about...
Oh, I love that movie.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was like one of the first ones I thought of. Like, for as long as I attempt to make films, I will be trying to make something as good as Margin Call. Like, that is, for me, the most mind-blowing debut feature I've ever seen. Like that ugh. And just as a writer, like that he wrote and directed that, and it's about like boring stuff, like
exactly.
Trash,
but it's so exciting.
He makes it this like parable about how people learn to live with doing really awful things to save themselves at the cost of somebody else, which again, you know, it's about this idea, not about the story. So Margin Call for sure.
Fuck yeah. Oh, dude. At some point in our lives, we need to watch movies together. Like, you got some really nice picks, man.
Oh, thanks, man. Okay, next one is my favorite documentary. And you guys asked me earlier. And my favorite genre, which is ironic because I'm a writer, my favorite genre is definitely documentaries.
Oh, wow.
Which is weird. I know that they are written in some ways, but, you know, not in sort of the conventional narrative sense.
Right.
My favorite documentary is definitely Werner Herzog's Grizzly Man.
The guy who got eaten by the bear, right?
You have to see it.
Oh my god.
You have to see it. Yeah.
Grizzly
it is super, super, super haunting. It's like you know, parable out of the Bible or something, like put in a movie. It just is like, it's about, you know, obsession and where that leads people, and you know how sometimes people find something that gives them so much meaning that they can't let go. Like it's just it's awesome.
Yeah. Oh wow. Do you know the story of how like what happened to him? Like, oh, I haven't seen it, but like I've heard like they just found body parts. Like,
oh yeah, all that will the movie answers all that stuff.
all that.
And it's like it's kind of like a found footage movie in a way, where like Werner Herzog got access to all these tapes, and then he builds the movie. So the footage is in the movie, and then he interviews like everybody who was around Timothy Treadwell's life around the footage. And then late in the production, he got access to like even more footage, and he kind of ends the movie with that. It's crazy, but awesome.
Nice. Oh wow.
Wow, you just made a documentary sound totally interesting.
Good. Yeah,
I might check that out. It sounds kind of really like horror, like horrific.
Yeah, it's super dark, but like, but it has a point. That's my only like requirement with dark, is it has a point. So
right.
Yeah.
And then next is definitely, I got to throw you an action bone.
Sweet.
Not only the best action movie I've ever seen, but I think one of my runners-ups is the other one. But the two like best movie-going experiences of my life was definitely seeing Die Hard when I was like 9 years old.
Fuck yeah.
Die Hard is definitely on the list.
Did you see that in theaters?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
My parents took me, and I was came out in '88, so I would have been 10. And I just still remember like the theater and like just the whole visual of walking in and out of the theater and how I felt after watching that. Like I felt like I floated out of the theater.
Oh wow. That must have been quite an experience. Oh
yeah,
man.
Die Hard is definitely my favorite action movie.
Fuck yeah.
Is it a
So,
Christmas movie?
what's the- Age-old debate. So, what other Die Hard film you said, that would have been one of the honorable mentions of the franchise? What's that other one that you love?
Oh, it's not of the same franchise, but
Okay.
yeah. I'll give you my last one, and then I'll do my 3 honorables. I think the last one is a comedy, which is like nice because everything else is like super serious. I think my favorite comedy is the movie Sideways by Alexander Payne.
Oh wow.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Who did The Descendants, and I liked it's that movie for me. I relate to that movie in uncomfortable ways, which is probably doesn't say great things about me, but I liked it when I saw it like at the time. And the older I get, the more I watch that movie, the more I think it is just like the best written, best performed, really like uncomfortably insightful movie about lame dudes.
Fuck
Right.
yeah. I like how you put that. Uncomfortably insightful. I feel exactly, yes. Insight should be uncomfortable, right? Because it's kind of digging in there.
Oh man, I'm in awe of that movie. It's so good. So those are my 6: Moneyball, Margin Call, Grizzly Man, Die Hard, Clear and Present Danger, and Sideways. And then my three runners up. The first one is the second movie that I think was like the most impressionable like movie going experience. It would be The Abyss.
Oh,
okay.
Cool.
Yeah, remember seeing that about the same time, I think, or maybe a year or so off of Die Hard. But also,
Yeah.
it was just like being a kid and then seeing that movie and like feeling, the part where they have to resuscitate her. It was just so like heavy and serious. Like that movie is incredible to me. I don't think they'll ever make an underwater movie that's
that.
Yeah, that's it. Speaking of behind the scenes, if you ever watch the DVD, and the scenes of how they made that is off the charts.
Yeah. Oh man.
Nice.
And then super quick, the other 2, back to documentaries, and probably my favorite political documentary is called The Oath, and it's by a woman named Laura Poitras. She did 3 films about the War on Terror. Her third one was called Citizen 4 about Edward Snowden.
Oh.
And this one, The Oath, came before that, and she went to Yemen and followed a former recruiter of bin Laden as he was like trying to leave that kind of life behind and kind of trying to lose the fundamentalism of terrorism, and having his own son and being, like wanting to leave that life, you think, but you're not sure as you watch. And the fact that she went over there and did that, like I think it's his cousin or something, or his brother-in-law was one of the people who was sending him letters from Guantanamo. Like, it's for me like the quintessential War on Terror documentary. It says kind of everything that can be said, and it was definitely a huge influence on From the Sky. Last one is Soderbergh's Out of Sight with George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez.
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to leave that one off, but that would be dishonest. Like, in truth, that's just it's just absolutely one of my favorite movies, and always has been. I think it's
a good one.
Style meets substance really heavily in that one, and I like that. I like how they balance that. What a cool
totally
movie.
Like amazing cast, like super well written. And it holds up. Like, it's still a lot of those movies from the 90s, that had that like indie vibe running through them. You watch them now and they feel kind of broke.
Right.
I think that one holds up among the best of those sort of 90 indie flavored movies. So there you go.
Yeah.
Nice, bro.
Nice list. Nice picks. Very diverse.
Thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Ian, thank you so much for joining us and talking story. And you did have some really cool picks and some interesting insights into the process of filmmaking. And definitely love to talk more with you later,
That would be awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much it was really fun. Thanks for reaching out. And it's fun this stuff doesn't happen very often where people just like, for me anyway, being, as we talked about earlier, just busy with life, to just kind of sit around and talk about film and what works and what doesn't, and stuff that you're inspired by. So it was really fun. Thanks for having me on.
Cool, man. Yeah.
No problem, dude. Is there anywhere that anybody listening can reach you, hit you up at, or see kind of what's going on?
Yeah, totally. My website is brokentelegraph.com. So all one word, brokentelegraph.com. There's links there to watch From the Sky and The Devil Needs a Fix for free on Vimeo. And you can email me there if you want. I'm on Twitter and Facebook also. So I'm easy to find for anybody who searches my name.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Well, cool, man.
Okay, Ian.
Have a
Awesome,
good
guys.
rest-
Thank you so much.
Yeah, have a good rest of your day, man, and thank you. Yeah, take care, brother.
Cool. Okay. Thanks,
All right,
guys.
Ian. Have a good one. Peace.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, well, that is it for this episode. Thank you for checking it out. Be sure to check out this episode's show notes for links to all our social media sites. But other than that, be sure to visit our website, nekkomedia.com. That's Nekko media.com.
.com.
And we also be on Twitter and Instagram. Very active on both of those. And you can check those out at cynical_mass. That's CINECAL_MASS. And feel free to get in touch through email, cinephiles and cenobites@gmail.com. Any movie recommendations, we'd love to check it out. Any screeners,
Any screeners?
we'd love to review. Any potential guests? Yeah, we love having guests on the show too.
Yeah, if you're a filmmaker, fucking hit us a line and we'll get you on the show.
A fellow.
Ask you your top 6 movies and what it's like to be an artist like you.
Oh, yes. And any fellow cinephiles and Cenobites. You are welcome.
Yes.
Any place that they can hit you up, Marks?
At villainous_kind, Instagram and fucking Twitter. But don't bother. I rarely check it except when I'm drunk. So
Oh, okay.
I'd either send it to Ono or the show.
Yeah, you can check me out on Twitter at thisisono. That's this is OHNO. Same goes for Instagram.
Oh,
Yup. All right. Well, thank you again. Take it away, Annika.
This has been a Nekko Media podcast broadcasting from the Blood Cave, part of the /Pollard family. For myself, Annika Pussyfoot, Mox, and Ono, keep the lights on and check under that bed because there's only one universal truth. No lives matter. That means you. Stay rating, Wokeland.
We have candy. This is us, Ono and Mox's podcast. Sounds like crap leaving ass, or duck fucking glass. Probably both, it's really bad. And we do the shit all for you. And we sound like shit while we do. Tigers podcast. We broadcasting shit podcast. Tigers podcast. In your face, in your dreams. Shit podcast. Tigers